A fellow by the name of Scott Denison, who wants to call an extraordinary meeting. Now, before we actually talk about the situation at St Kilda, let's just hear what Scott had to say today about calling this meeting, and in particular the processes that have been put in place down there at Moorabbin.
Grant Thomas could never win, because if they're going to go through such an extensive process, then undertaking to find this coach, then Grant Thomas didn't have the experience. There was obviously a lot of other people out there in the AFL that had a lot more experience. So Tomo could never win because of the process that Rod Butters wanted to put in place. Look, I believe that after there was a few leaks from the board level that that the club got embarrassed regarding when there was a few articles in the Age saying that Grant Thomas had the job, and I think they got embarrassed, and there was a bit of a backlash regarding that. And so because of those reasons, they had to say that they're going to go through this serious process. But I've got no doubt that Grant Thomas was always going to be the coach.
The fact is they need 200 signatures, Ryan, to call this extraordinary meeting. It would be an amazing turn of events, wouldn't it?
Well, it would, and you have to wonder which way it'll go. I mean, just my reading of some St Kilda opinion, a lot of people seem to have a lot of antipathy towards Scott Denison, and I guess it's as much because it's another rocking of the boat, it's another civil war at a time when they're just dying for a bit of calm waters. But we don't know a lot about him, I suppose. I mean, all I know is he runs, I think, a clothes shop in Glenferrie Road, Melbourne. As far as I can tell, he's just a pretty committed St Kilda supporter who has some, what I think anyway, pretty valid concerns about how this board has handled the whole year, really. I mean, I wrote a column about this on Saturday, I think, and copped a bit of flack about it. But look, I mean, their handling of the year's been disastrous, I think, and this sham of a coaching appointment process, I think, just topped it off.
I think that, if my memory serves me right, is that Denison was actually running for the board when all the new group
he bobbed up
in.
last year, yeah.
And he was making some pretty strong statements, but then he backed off, and he backed off on the basis that Butters and Thomas had gone to him and said, if you continue to mount this challenge, we won't get Blight. And so he backed off on that, and I think now he feels a little bit affronted that one of the people that asked him to back off, Blight's now gone, and all of a sudden that person asking to back off is now the coach. So
well, how do you guys feel about it? I mean, you've both had close St Kilda connections recently. Do you think, they should avoid this at all costs, or does it need to happen? Of course they should.
No, they should try and avoid it at all costs. But this is the last thing they need now to be unsettled again at this particular point in time. Can you imagine if this happened now when they're going through the process of actually trying to attract recruits to the club, and this perhaps comes to a head in the next week or so? It's going to be very, very difficult, not only to attract recruits to the club and go through that whole process, but to go through sponsors. And then also to go through recruiting other staff that they'll obviously need for next season too. So it will throw the place into a complete uproar.
Right, I'd gather 200 signatures wouldn't be too hard to gather.
No, well, you'd think not. They've got a pretty large support base, and it's a pretty volatile one, so you'd think he'd round up the numbers, or 200 at least anyway. And yeah, look, it's going to be it's going to be a pretty extraordinary AGM this year at St Kilda. I think they might want to.
On the playing side, they've also got their work cut out actually trying to keep a couple of their players in. Barry Hall, who's already told the football world that he wants to move on. A deal still hasn't been struck there, and it's going to be difficult, I think, for them to actually achieve that. And also Peter Everett, who I believe has been told by Grant Thomas. I heard Grant on the weekend talking about it and said, look, you may want to now stay here, Peter, if that's what you're telling me, but make sure you want to stay here for the right reasons, and don't come back to St Kilda Football Club and play if you're not prepared to commit yourself totally to the football club.
I wouldn't have thought they could afford to lose both those two, maybe one. But
I think they're prepared to lose Hall. I think they're prepared to let Barry go, but not Spider. I mean, Spider's been their best player, and I still believe that. Look, I think that Grant can establish enough relationship with Spider to stay. I don't have a problem with that.
You do have to pinch yourself and remind yourself quite frequently that this same club was in a grand final 4 years ago. It's just staggering.
Let's just move on now and listen to what Scott Denison had to say actually about the retention of Barry Hall and Peter Everett.
Obviously, Barry Hall and Spider have got their own opinions of where they want to head in their future in football, and ideally, I guess they're tremendous players, and you don't want to see those type of guys leaving the club. But I guess if they want to leave, I just think that the club shouldn't stop them. Got to have players who want to play at the club, and hopefully then they can do a good trade with those players and get players who want to come down and play at St Kilda.